Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, join us as we explore what it truly means to be a musician and speak to the diverse talents that make music in our city. Today on the podcast, we're excited to chat with Kim Beales, a talented singer-songwriter and guitarist. Kim started his day at Pughouse Studios in Melbourne, tracking drums, acoustic guitar and vocals for his latest project. He plans to continue this creative endeavour in the UK and back home in Tasmania. Kim's musical journey includes the 2011 release of Tambourine Sky, an album recorded in old churches and halls around Melbourne to utilise their natural reverb and ambience. This project was further enriched by a year spent in the Kimberley, working in remote Indigenous communities, with final touches added in London, Cardiff and Myanmar. The album features guest vocals by indie artist Tamas Wells, with whom Kim has toured in Japan and China multiple times. Last year, Kim released a new album titled Portraits, which features narrative songs inspired by characters from life, literature and film. This release is accompanied by a series of line drawings, each a unique portrait representing a song. Kim is also a co-founder of North Fitzroy Records. Join us as we delve into Kim's creative process, explore his global experiences, and uncover the stories behind his music. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Hey Kim, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. That was musical drumming there. There was melody in that drum.
Yeah, well, our drummers musicians.
Exactly.
Kim, what's the latest album that you've listened to?
Oh, that is a great question. Well, I mean, I've just been listening to masses of my friend Tamas Wells because I had to learn more than 25 songs.
Wow.
To go on tour. So I've been listening to him a lot.
Did you play the same set of 25 songs every night on the tour?
We had the very first show had songs from his earlier album. So we played a sort of special set for the first show and then, similar for the rest.
Wow.
Yes. But no, I think I was listening to a band called Flight. Yeah. That I just stumbled across and it was good.
Nice.
So that was, But as to, I listened last night with headphones to a Japanese lady who was playing with us on this tour.
Mm.
Yeah. And my brain has got to try and remember her name.
Well, when you remember, let us know and I'll put it in the podcast notes.
Yeah. I can find out if I open my phone and look at what I last listened to.
Was this lady doing the tour with you as the support act?
Yeah, and she was really good. She had like this 70s vibe, a really pure voice, played the piano, played sort of jazz piano. Her name is Saho Terao. And she was really good. So that's what I genuinely was listening to last.
Cool. Did she come out to Melbourne for this final show last night?
No, we just played the very first show with her.
Oh, okay.
But very mesmerising singer.
Cool.
And excellent.
So I guess I should preface that you've just toured with Tamas Wells, but not as your own act, but a member of his band.
Both.
Oh.
Yeah, so I played the tour and did the support slot and then waved goodbye to everyone, took a deep breath and then ran back on. And so I played electric guitar, played a telecaster and did a solo set in each of the cities, so Japan and China, and then and Melbourne last night. And then for Tamas played electric guitar, but also played bass, which was new for me.
Oh, cool.
And I absolutely loved it. I ended up buying a bass for this tour.
What kind of bass did you get?
I bought a Hofner. It's a little bit Paul McCartney, but it's more guitar shape than like violin shape.
Okay.
But had it felt fun to play.
Nice.
Lighter and good for a guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
So I can now say that I'm a, a bass player. Yeah, and then actually got to play at piano at a tambourine and lots of singing.
Sick.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
sorry, you threw me when you said there was all of a sudden this Japanese supporting artist, and I was like, oh, I thought you were the support act. I must have got that wrong.
No, for the first show she played, which was excellent.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was it like, doing, and it's not the first time that you've done this, but you come out as your own act,
Yeah.
and then you have to come back again and play as the session muso.
Yeah. It was actually fun. It meant I got to play for the whole night. The 3 people that I travelled with are some of my best friends, and which was incredible to spend time with them. So it's just a lot of fun. So I went from like doing this set into taking a breath, doing the little team huddle or whatever we do, and then out we go. And I felt pretty ready.
Cool.
The thing I wasn't ready for is we had to do all this signing afterwards that went on for ages.
Wow.
So it was very late by the time it had all finished. Yes, but it was good. It was a lot of fun.
So what's it like signing your autograph to adoring fans?
Well, they were mostly my friends' fans. But I made postcards for the show because I wanted to be able to give people something. So I got the 2 most recent albums and put them onto a postcard. And that was really nice because then every time someone came, I'd be like, here's a postcard.
Lovely.
You can check out this music. So for me, it was like a nice experience. Me and my friend Chris are slow because we try and take people seriously is one of the things, like an ethos in life. Reduce one's own status. Meet a person at a more even level or pure level or something like that. And so what's their name? And tell us about something about you. It made it a little bit slow. So we had to speed up our process. Yes.
Wow. That's special though.
I think I admire that in my friend. Yeah. In fact, those friends that I played with when I was young, when I was a teenager, were like my role models in life and music. And I was journaling on the plane or the train, and I was like thinking, I should call them my rock and roll models. And but also great friends. So it was, a lot of things I admire about them, and their ethos in life.
Well, this podcast is around like music in Melbourne, I suppose.
Yes.
And you've played all around the world and, lived in Melbourne for times and not lived in Melbourne. What do you think it is about like the Melbourne music scene that makes it unique, having experienced, playing and recording music in lots of different places?
Yes. Culture. When I was a young fella, I went out all the time and there would always be a gig on, and that's what I did in my early 20s, and just see a friend, what band should we go to? And there were just so many different venues, and some of the music you would go and you'd pay to see, some of it was just bands that were just playing, and you'd just be able to find a place to hear some and incredible music. So there's a culture of it here and loads of different places. My sense is it's a bit less than it was 20 years ago. That's been a bit tougher for the music scene, but nevertheless, Melbourne is a great place to be a part of, to play and experience others' music too.
Have you found that other places, I don't know, don't have as much on? Is that what you mean? Or as in it's just a culture in Melbourne where there's a lot of support for live music, and so it's sort of,
both. I mean, like reading those like street magazines, and there were like so many, what's on tonight? Masses and masses of things. So definitely more. There was definitely a lot on. Yes. Stage of life shifts though. I now have kids.
Mm.
And so my capacity, I mean, it can go out a bit if there's a particular thing I want to do, but lifestyle's probably a little bit different. So hard to compare in this present window of time.
Yeah, fair. Well, you know, with your kids, do you take them out to see shows, or, you know, instill a, you know, eclectic listening regime to expand their musical minds?
Great question. My sons love Ninjago, which is like Ninja and Lego. And they listen to the theme songs and Star Wars.
Is it a TV show?
TV show,
Ninjago?
yeah. And my daughter's got into Taylor Swift.
Okay.
So she's introduced me. She introduces me to pop music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we tried to put you in a box for your like original music,
Yeah.
what would you describe yourself as?
Yeah, I was definitely a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
I love the process of crafting songs. I think that my songs are probably a bit narrative. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Narrative songs. Yeah.
Is there anything that's, I suppose, inspired you to pursue that rather than, you know, we've had lots of different guests on the podcast, and some of them have said they just write whatever it comes, and others say, oh, I'm processing my emotions with this.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'm composing to elicit a reaction or to create textures and colors or something.
Yes.
But for you, like the narrative.
Maybe I'm a storyteller. Yeah. And I do that in speaking, but I like the way of telling stories in songs as well. Telling stories in songs comes at it from a different angle. I've been doing some shows where I, when there's like sufficient time, just really taking the time with telling some of the stories of the songs, almost like you hear the narrative in two different ways. And in fact, the portraits, the album 9 portraits, you got 3 because you can tell the story, play the song, but also draw these line drawings of the different people. I have no idea what the question was, but
well, my question was sort of like around what got you started, or why did you go down that direction of the storytelling angle?
Maybe some songs that I loved were or are songs like Sufjan Stevens' Casimiri Pulaski Day, very narrative, and I enjoy the intersection of personal story, fiction, characters that one might have met or from elsewhere, and I quite enjoy songs that interweave human experience with biblical narrative in a kind of ambiguous way. So Hallelujah does it in an incredible way. You've got these ancient characters, but also really present, and so the crossover of the two. So for me, I wrote a song called Emmanuel. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, so it's not so abstract, Emmanuel was a waiter at a French restaurant, and I used to go to the French restaurant with my friend, and Emmanuel would serve us. We got to know him, and I really liked Emmanuel. It happened that his boss was called Gabriel. And for those that aren't aware, Emmanuel and Gabriel are like the two key characters in the Christmas story. So when I go to that French restaurant, I think of Christmas. But as it turned out, Emmanuel has this really tragic story. And so I weave a narrative connecting these people that I've met, along with the Christmas narrative in a sort of obscure way, and then this ancient carol called O Come, Emmanuel. So that I'm interested in that.
Yeah,
I'm interested in the connection point between different times and people. Yeah. So that's, I think, not every song does that, but that's yeah. Some of them have done that kind of thing.
So how did you go about picking, your 9 portraits?
Usually there was actually one time I just shared with some friends, does anyone want me to write a song? And one guy, you probably know him, Jeffrey Yikwa, who's from West Papua, said, can you write my story? And I said, sure. And so then I met with him at a cafe, and he told me his story as a refugee from West Papua, travelling by boat, what it was like to be on the boat with his 43 companions and his brother, and eventually to come to Australia. His experience in Australia of not knowing the language. As a boy, he used to see the planes flying over him in Wamana, and he just was amazed by flight. When he came to Australia, the teachers at school were encouraging him to maybe not do any more school. They didn't think that his brain was. They thought he might have had some challenges. I think it was about language and processing trauma and him being young. But he ended up sticking through school and became an aerospace engineer.
Yeah.
And now he not only can fly planes, he designs them and, I don't know, organizes them, engineers them. Yeah.
Jeffrey's an amazing person.
Yes.
Had you known his story before you sat down to do that interview to write it?
I knew parts of his story, but then I got to know these really intimate parts, the conversations he had on the phone with his dad. So then for the portrait, I drew a picture of Jeffrey embracing his dad when they were reunited after many years. There was a photo of it. And I loved the lines on his father's face and tried to capture that. Yeah, and so I weave that along with their faith as well. The father's parting words to trust in God as they go on this great voyage, and Jeffrey's own spiritual journey as well. So that comes into it. Yes.
How much does that either like the spiritual journey or like biblical narratives that you like to play with,
Yes,
come into all the music you do? Or was that more of the time of doing the Portraits album, rather than something that's consistent throughout all the music you make?
Yeah, great question, because I think that was very much in that particular project that I wanted to do that thing. I wanted to do the thing that happened in Hallelujah, or in that Sufjan song that I was talking about. Today was recording love songs, and a song about hope, I was recording one called "Stumble into Something New," and it's a mixture of different imaginative experiences. And I remember the time I was working in a sugar factory, shoveling sugar. In fact, I was shoveling sugar in this weird world of white in the middle of a silo, reading Brave New World and 1984, these dystopian novels. And at that same time, was the same time as the Twin Towers were, flown into by aeroplanes, and somehow all of that gets into it. And it's that song that I was actually just recording with you today, Luke, has a strange mixture of things going on. And I read this book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and it was trying to work out which of the two dystopian novels the world's going to. 1984, which is more control, or Brave New World, which is more about entertainment. And the author argued that we're moving a bit more towards Brave New World. which I think I'm seeing around us, people just getting entertained, amused, amusing ourselves to death, essentially. Although in other parts of the world, it's more the power and control. So I think both of those aspects of both of those dystopias are happening, sometimes even at the same time, in the same cultures. Yeah. Confusing sentences that I'm speaking. Anyhow, in the midst of all of that, so I'm processing all of that, and I want to be a person who's, I don't want to be amused by screens and miss life. I want to live. And so almost like I've got this resistance thing where I'm seeking to pursue creativity. Obviously, sometimes I just want to put your feet up and watch a great show. But yeah, I had some line in that late bloomer, don't be a consumer, where I'm singing to myself as well. So that song's this strange mix of the sugar factory, the dystopian novels, the way the world's going, entertainment, life, and the desire to stumble into something new or fulfilling.
So how much does these, like, the big issues that you're like grappling with in the song or the story that you're telling, like how much of it is you in the music versus like an artistic persona that you put on, like the mask of the artist?
Yeah.
Does it feel like it's resonating as like this is you, or is this like you come into the studio or you sit down to write the song or you step out onto stage and it's Kim Beales, like the artist, which is a separate.
I think it's probably a lot me. I'd be interested exploring the other one. I definitely explored it a little bit through engaging with others' perspectives. But I know my interpretation on those perspectives comes into it. So we were going to record one that we didn't even get to record, but I was imagining what it might be like for a Israeli and a Palestinian, someone from Israel, someone from a Palestinian to be in love, and how they could make the relationship work with the intensity of the different cultures. Romeo and Juliet. I was writing a Romeo and Juliet song. And that was an attempt to empathize with another world. And even sometimes I find the news so overwhelming. There's so much stuff coming at us all the time that to contemplate a love story opens up the world in a different way. So that was so I'm seeking to step into others' shoes, but it's probably
quite authentically
it's quite authentically me. Yeah. I'd be open to exploring something beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I guess, top tip to the listeners that keep asking to come on the podcast is hire me to play drums on your project, and you can jump in. But I had a really fun time recording with you today because it was the first time that I'd recorded with you.
Yes.
And I think you have this I guess excited energy for the music, but also like this creative seriousness around it. And I found it really great how there were a few times where, we'd played the song as you were teaching me the music, and clearly the drums weren't quite right, but you were like, let's just do it again. I don't want to give you any notes. Let's make the music. And It was so nice for me to have the experience of, yes, I've got the freedom to come in and just play.
Yes.
And I know the times when it was like, oh yeah, I'm just learning the form, or I'd try to fill or feel or something different just to, test it all out before we play the real thing. And sometimes, you get a lot of feedback that's like, oh yeah, I know that was not the right thing, or that you wanted something else. It's just part of the learning process.
Yes.
But it was just the two of us in the studio, so it was extra raw, I guess. But
it was
created this
amazing.
great
It was
space.
amazing connecting the finger plucking process of a guitar just with the drum. The two instruments, or drums, I guess, multiple instruments in some ways, but the two things was coming together.
Yeah.
What's going on for me is that if I speak too much, my speech can get in the way. It's happened to me. Sometimes people want a particular thing and their language can obscure it for me, and then I pursue this thing that we haven't quite worked out what it is.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I trust your musicianship, and I want you to have a great time and to be feeling it and to artistically be engaging with it. So I think, I was reticent to say, hey, don't do that. Or I was more like, no, we're having some fun here. And you want something to happen that's a little bit magical. And then we can come back and say, okay, let's a little pause here, or, we can do some subtle things. And we did that. But
it wasn't the Steely Dan approach where I came in and you had everything notated and you wanted exactly this. And I think like what was extra special is that like we were creating music that felt quite like sensitive, and we were close miking the drums. So it was this very like close, intimate sound with your acoustic guitar.
Yeah, and we got I planned to play different songs today.
Yeah.
And we just started playing, and then I'm like, I think we should do this. So I was going to do a song which was just on acoustic guitar, and I'm like, no, this is working with this sound, and you were doing different sort of brushes things. And so we stayed in that space. So I had actually ended up recording different songs, but it felt good. And maybe that's something about life, about being prepared, but also open for the spontaneous. To stumble into something new.
We have such this like an interesting way of thinking, and it's so like big picture as well as like at like the smallest level of just like person to person. What's your like journey been like, I guess, to get you to here? Like, were you always a big thinker as a young kid growing up?
Yeah, I do love concepts. I struggle with filling in forms. So, yeah, I guess our brains are wired in particular ways. I'm definitely a relational person. And then in the context of friendship, in the context of faith, in the context of exploration, just interested in how people approach life, and we work out an approach along the way. I read a book on ethics called Improvisation, and it was trying to learn how we can live a kind of ethical life using improvisational techniques from drama.
Okay.
Or even music. And it was a great book by a guy called Samuel Wells. He talks about often in life people think the answer's yes, where you just accept something, or no, where you say no, like in terms of ethical dilemmas or just things that come to you. And he says in drama, if you just say yes, it's okay. If you say no, it kind of kills the drama. But a skill in drama is to take the thing that's given to you and receive it and then recast it into something new. I don't know. So you have got a cup of tea in your hand, and it's got the shape of a trophy or something. So if you hand me the tea, I could receive it like you've given me a medal, or that's a ridiculous version of this thing. But the idea is that we receive what comes to us and then recast it afresh. And I like that. That's what makes drama interesting, but it's also a mode for living in the world
Mm.
that is open to others, but doesn't mean you just say yes to everything, but neither does it mean you say no to everything. And sometimes out of the difficulty, the beautiful things can emerge as you receive what's come to you. That is a ramble. But
So
I
interesting,
think
though.
about that sort of stuff.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, how did you get started with music then?
When I was a boy, my grandparents are musicians. My grandfather was a conductor for orchestras, a pianist. My grandmother was a violin player. And then my mum is a musician. When I was a boy, I had a teacher. I was learning piano, and if I made a mistake, she called me swear words. I know how much swearing you've got on your show. And she'd like wrap my knuckles and swear at me.
Oh, wow.
And
Is this in the UK? Or-
Western Australia.
Ah, okay. Yep.
And I was little, and I think that was the way. It was like the tough way of teaching kids. And I remember crying and being like, I don't want to learn music. I just want to do sport. I loved sport as a boy. I still enjoy sport. And I pursued sport as a kid. And then one day, years later, was sitting at home and worked out the Peter Gunn theme from the Blues Brothers on Mum's guitar.
Yeah.
Doodle, 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 doodle. And Mum's like, whoa, that's amazing. I'm like, is it really? And she's like, yes, you got to have guitar lessons. I'm like, no. And she's like, you got to do this. And so she got her friend Tim to give me guitar lessons. And I was a bit nervous based on my past experience.
Yeah.
And the first thing he taught me was rock and roll facial expressions. So that if you're too deep, you kind of lean in. And then if you're going to go to a high note, you're like, yeah, how do I express these facial things with words? But anyhow, you can imagine rock and roll facial expressions. And I thought, this guy's cool. And then he taught me guitar, and the thing he was like, now you just, here's some chords, go write, your homework is write something.
Wow.
And so then I did. And I think I had about 7 lessons with him, really liked him. We then moved to Melbourne from the UK. And then I learned through experimentation. I used to close my eyes and just find a place in the guitar and just play it without knowing what it is. And if the chord sounded bad, I'd move a finger until it sounded good. And then I'd experiment around that shape or around that area. Mm-hmm. So then I'd experiment with rhythm or melodically engaging with that part of the guitar. And so then I've worked out this way of being a rhythm guitarist, essentially, that explores the instrument outside of your standard chords. That's kind of what I was grew up doing. And then it started writing songs, and then just would get absorbed in it, and then I just love it. I love it. I love that. And then I love the relational part of then bringing the song to life with others, which we did today.
Yeah. Wow, what an awesome start. Like, to not only have like a teacher that got you excited by showing you facial expressions, but like to not be like, okay, here's your homework, learn these shapes, or here's your homework, go and learn these songs. Yeah. It was, no, you go and write music.
Yeah. So I wrote this like, A minor, C and G, like go and make up a thing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's limit. I mean, yeah, but that's, in the end of the day, a lot of the great songs don't have much more than a few chords. Yeah.
That's so interesting though. To me, it just seems like, oh, well, of course you went on to explore shapes and sounds and be, I suppose, like inquisitive on your instrument.
Yes.
Because you weren't handed the like classical piano style strict regime.
Yes.
You were given tools to just pursue what you found to be interesting.
Yeah. So 2 completely different teacher styles at different phases of life. But yeah, that second one spoke to me. That's a great way of honouring that teacher. Yeah.
So how did it transfer from you just sitting down with a guitar to starting to play shows?
Ooh, well, I said like my rock and roll models. I was 15, 16, we moved to Melbourne, and they were a bit older, like at uni, and they were playing gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of jumped on the bandwagon.
Okay.
Maybe I'm still jumping on the bandwagon. And so then they were playing, I don't know, Melbourne venues like the Dan O'Connell, the Prince Patrick, the Empress, the Subterrane, which is now an Indian curry place on Brunswick Street. Yes. Yeah, so my friends created space for me to play. And then I made an EP when I was 21, I started then doing gigs which I'd organise myself. So that's how I started playing live.
Did you like the band thing, or did you prefer to play solo?
They're both completely different. As I love the band thing because of the energy it can bring. There's something dynamic and big. Even it can be close. Doesn't have to be big, but something more through the different people you play with. There can be something close and tender about just playing the songs. So they're both good. When I was younger, maybe I think I wanted the security or the camaraderie of having friends. You can feel quite a bit more alone if it's just playing yourself. But now I feel really relaxed. Maybe I'm just a bit old. I'm just more chilled. I just feel at ease. So I don't actually really enjoy playing. If there's people that would like to engage, I'm really happy. And I've actually liked telling the stories as well. Mm-hmm. But a couple of the gigs I did last year, I think just sharing stories and took it to a place. It had its own thing, mm-hmm. independent of the music, and it was great to be able to do that. Yeah, but playing with a band is exhilarating.
There is, I guess, the energy.
Yeah,
but it's also different to the energy you get from the audience when it's just you.
Yes,
like that's a connection that you don't get, especially at the back behind a drum kit. Like if it's just you and acoustic guitar in a room of 100, 200 people, that's so close.
There's a thing that happens. When you're one of my goals when I play live is I could call it inhabit the song, because the people that I think that are amazing do that. Mm-hmm. They're in the song. They're not just playing the song, they're in it. They've entered into the world of the song. And when that happens, there's a lifting that comes from the audience that you then receive. But then because you're receiving it, then you're able to give something more, and then the audience are lifted, and then because they're being lifted, you get lifted, and then it can, not all the time, but occasionally, that can escalate into something profound. A place. It's rare, but when that happens, that's amazing.
Are there some moments from your career that really stand out to you as moments like that? Like, when you're describing this to me, are you thinking of some times where you've had that? Yes. And some of that's been band playing, some of it's been solo. Some of it's been the excitement of a crowd that suddenly hears a song I was playing. I played one song in China and I just got to the chorus and people just started cheering because they were just excited. And I rose with that energy. I never sold more CDs than I sold that night in the era of selling CDs. So something happened there in that room. But more recently, that happened with this song Emmanuel I was doing, and then shared the story and did the song, and it got to a place, and I tip my hat to the Carol O Come O Come Emmanuel,
with this trumpet part or cornet part that happens at the end, which sings the melody. But I didn't have trumpets for that gig, so I just thought I'm going to go to the end of the song. I'm going to sing the carol, and then the people in the room that knew the carol started singing the carol, and the song. I mean, the song's it's pretty hard. It's a pretty tragic song.
Very,
but this thing happened in the room, and I was aware of it, and I think the people that were there were aware of it. And then, like, people say when I listen to that song, they cry, or that they then go back and they've got now a relationship to that song that's connected to the experience of it, where a moment of understanding happened. That's special. It's good.
Yeah, very.
It's a privilege.
Are you talking about the North Fitzroy Records launch?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there. It was very special.
That thing happened.
Yeah.
In the room. Yeah.
Yeah, what a moment.
Yeah, it was a good moment. Yeah. And so music can lead to those moments, but so can conversation. Life in different ways when we're present to one another. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
We've been doing this thing on the podcast where I get each guest to ask a question of the next guest.
Yes.
But without knowing who the next guest is.
Yes.
Other than the generic music adjacent.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you from our previous guest.
Okay, yep.
Drummer and writer Caitlin Thomas.
Cool. Caitlin, thank you.
What do they think about the comment that I heard a couple of times through uni, which was, if you can do anything other than music, then do it and don't do music? What do they think about that comment?
Oh, I think the person that's saying that comment sounds sad, disillusioned, disenchanted, bit bitter. If you could do anything other than do music, do that. I think that person must have some ideals and disappointment. Perhaps sounds like it's a saying that they heard a number of times. Music can be hard to make a living. I remember one time I played a gig at the Prince Patrick. You know, Jeff Buckley had played there. These bands that I love had played there. And then I sat I'd done a gig and the people were pumped. It was like a good gig. And I went to the guy to see if I could organise the next gig. And he was really rude. And he's like, you're ugly. I was like 19.
Wow.
And he's like, I think I was just, I was what you see is what you get. I think he just wanted to get a reaction. And then he goes, you can't just, if you want to do music, you've got to create a persona, you know, like Nick Cave, in the clothes you wear and the character that you enter into. You got to do that. Maybe that he's talking about the latter of your two things. Are you being just authentically you, or are you doing this other thing? And he had this belief in you got to do the other thing. And why am I telling that story? I guess we have these moments where we speak to people that can be a bit harsh or jaded or have some belief, but there's no rules for who you're going to be. And if you're a character, that's great. And if you're just being authentically yourself, that's great. But just enter into it and go for it. So I'd say to Caitlin, don't worry about that. Just go and live, and you'll work it on the way. One thing though, music isn't everything. I once heard a talk from a student, great talk, but music was everything in her talk. But I think there's bigger things. Music is incredible, but there's things that are bigger. In my life, my relationship with my wife, it's bigger than music. And when you find the bigger things, sometimes you've got to put down the thing the other thing that you love. There's like a hierarchy of loves. But then in a relationship of respect, you want to give each other space. So my wife's been amazing because she's given me space to go and travel the world and then to be here and then do all these gigs while she's looking after the kids. Man, how amazing, like selfless and serving is she. So we want to honor each other and do that. But music is incredible, but it's just a signpost to something that's even greater.
Well, how do you go about balancing, I suppose the return act with your wife of like you're doing the music thing, which can be quite hard on a family when you're away and traveling the world or off, in songwriting mode, just, exploring your thoughts, but not so present for the family or something.
She made a deal with me. And because I'm on long service leave, I've got 3 and a bit months. And I'm in the context of my work, I missed the opportunity to just fully get absorbed in the creative process. And I wanted to get into that space, not to just have a holiday, but to get in that, which I'm in and been in. It's great. But she said, look, in this long service leave, we're going to do a trip up the coast in WA. When we do that with us, the kids, I want you to be in like family mode. So, and I'm going to go to England in the next week to visit my parents, brother and sister. And she's like, all right, when you go to England, go and write your album or go and write your songs and do it there and then come back and be really ready for the kids. So I respect, I think she's cool. I like that. And she's saying, I want you to go for this, but I also want you to be present.
Yeah.
And she was saying, don't try and do them both at the same time.
Sounds very wise.
So, I don't know. And this is a thing that we've worked out for this period of months that I've got. But then in general life, this year, I wanted to hit my long service leave and not be like, the creative juices aren't flowing. So I started getting up early in the morning before the kids would go to school and just journaling every day. Writing words, making up stuff. Didn't need to be good, but just getting into practice, which is actually, it's been good. So I feel ready. But I think there's a way of, there'll be a way of being creative in the context of work. But we just have to hold it lightly because my life is not just about me. There's people that I love that I be ready for as well. That's a long answer to that question, but it's, don't worry about jaded people. Music's amazing, go for it. But also, it has its place in the broader scheme of life as well.
Well, what question would you like to ask our next guest?
Do you experience an inner restlessness and longing that never goes away?
It's a very deep question. I won't put it back onto you, but it'll be interesting to see what they say.
But my answer would be pretty simple.
Yes.
Correct.
Kim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We like to wrap up with 5 quick questions.
Yeah.
So, without thinking too much, what's your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
Northcote Social Club.
What's your dream venue to play at?
I don't know. What about one of those what's that one that they play in New York where they do those 60s concerts? I can't remember what it's called.
Like Madison Square Gardens?
Smaller theatre.
Oh. I don't know. This is a scene that I don't know so much about.
You know what? I've never been there. I don't have it. I don't know. Sorry. Terrible answer. Cut. Edit.
All right, we'll try again. What's your dream venue to play at?
I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there anywhere, that you would like to record? Is there like an album of yours that you're like, oh, I'd love to go to, Nashville and record there, or
I loved
somewhere
going
in
to
the UK?
Pughouse today.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. Nico was cool, super relaxed, but it was good. I want to go back there and record with you again and record with others again. And yeah,
That'd be
it
great.
was good.
What is your coffee order?
Ooh, latte. Large latte with oat milk. Cholesterol.
What is
Gotta keep it down.
What's your favorite place to get food after a gig?
Oh, great question. What's open? Oh man, I tell you what. In Japan, we went. The owner of the venue that we played at said, "I'm going to take you to the best sashimi place in Japan." And we went to this place in Shibuya, this little place that they had like all these chefs preparing sushi, and it was amazing. It was so fresh, and I don't know if I could beat that. That was straight after a gig.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So were there places open quite late at night?
Yeah, and they include like that place is like they've got this place that you can eat this poisonous fish, and the chefs have to have a license, so they cut it the right way so they don't poison you. We'll order that.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay.
wow.
And the poisonous fish was okay, but their other stuff was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
All right, and finally,
Yeah.
what's one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Do you think that you did?
Maybe. I think something is happening now in music and art where my identity is not so closely connected to it, so that if I get to do it, it's just fun and joy and feels so great.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a bit younger, I really cared about it, and my identity was a bit more closely connected to it. So some of that creative experience involved a little bit more stress or pressure. So I'm experiencing something now that's quite free. Yeah. So I might say that to my younger self. Maybe my younger self might say something back. Who knows?
Well, thanks so much. It's been awesome just having this chat with you, and thanks for including me in the new project, and just sharing all of your different thoughts and grapplings and processes. And you're a special guy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for playing. I've really enjoyed, and thanks for engaging. What a privilege to have someone listen and ask questions and be interested. So thanks for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, if listeners want to get in touch with you, or see your music or buy an album or hire you as a session guitarist or something. Like, I know you've got albums on Bandcamp. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
With me personally?
Well, or your label, or...
North Fitzroy Records. So I started that with my friend Pete, which is about encouraging creativity. You could look up North Fitzroy Records and you could get in touch that way. I don't know if I've got some email thing out there that gets people to me, but I am out and about. Someone said, you've got to get an Instagram, so I got one of them. Kim Beales Music. I kind of avoided that, and so I've got one of them with about 5 posts.
And Bandcamp to buy the music? Would that be the best spot?
If a person wants to buy it there, and then it's just, you can stream it on pretty much anything. So the 2 albums that are on at the moment are Tambourine Sky and 9 Portraits, and then I hope to get this next project up soon. Yeah, hopefully this year.
Oh, exciting.
Exciting.
Thanks so much, Kim.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed getting to know another Melbourne muso like I did. Help us grow by leaving a review, share the podcast with friends and family, and subscribe on our website for extra info. Got a guest you'd love to hear on the show? Please let us know at ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.